It's a great pleasure to have Graham Watson, MEP for Southwest here, and he will be talk a little bit about his book on the experiences, not only his own experiences, but the experiences and the achievements of the liberal route in the European Parliament. And then we have Professor Banducci and Professor Radelli, who will give their comments on the book. So without further ado,
Thanks. Well, sorry everyone to keep you waiting. I must say, when I come and talk about the European Parliament, I'm reminded of the story of the chap who was invited to make a speech somewhere, and he wrote back and said, "I'd be delighted to come, but I can think of at least 10 people better qualified than I am." To which the organisers replied, "Well, so can we, but they've all turned us down." I am not an academic, and my latest book is not an academic study of the European Union, and I am by no stretch of the imagination an intellectual. I am a simple practitioner. I've had the good fortune to be elected on 4 occasions to serve in the European Parliament, currently in my 4th term, and I hope to continue. I will try to keep my remarks brief because we do have with us 2 real academics and intellectuals who can no doubt tell you far more about everything that's wrong in my book than I can. But also because one of my very first experiences in politics was as a young candidate in a by-election in the west of Scotland about 34 years ago. And I went to a meeting rather like this, and I turned very nervously to the chairman, since it was one of my first public meetings, and I said, "How long should I speak for?" And he replied, "Well, you can speak for as long as you like, young man, but we leave here at 5 o'clock. It's one of the best lessons I've ever had in politics. So let me try to be brief. I've had the good fortune to serve, as I say, 3 full terms, and now into my 4th term in the European Parliament. In my first term, I managed to get on to the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee, which was what I wanted to. Why? Because the European Union was in the process of putting together the euro. We'd got the Maastricht Treaty, and we were actually putting together what the rules governing the euro. And these are at the moment under some discussion, as you might appreciate. In my 2nd term, I had the chance to become the chairman of a committee, and I opted for the Justice and Home Affairs Committee because we had just put in place the Amsterdam Treaty and the so-called Tampere programme, the creation of what was called an area of freedom, security and justice, it struck me, the most interesting area of development of the European Union at that time. And I was very fortunate to oversee, in 2.5 years as chairman of that committee, quite a lot of that development. I then became the leader of my political party in the European Parliament and managed to double it in terms of the numbers in the House over a period of 7.5 years. I stepped down last year because I had enough. I'm now sitting as a backbencher again on the Foreign Affairs Committee. But the reason for that being that probably the biggest single development of the European Union in the coming 5 years will be the development of what is called the European External Action Service, for which read European Union Diplomatic Service. We're certainly not going to call our people ambassadors. That would upset the member states. They'll be called representatives, but ambassadors is what they are. And they will be running the diplomatic service, for which we need and are developing a common foreign and security policy. Now, just to set the whole thing in context, because what I try to do in the book is to trace not just the things I've spoken about just now, but I try to trace the history of the European Union over 30 years, from the first direct elections in 1979 to the last ones in 2009, and look at what happened, how Liberal Democrats in Parliament reacted, and what difference, if any, it made. This is not an academic study, it's not a rigorous analysis. And I'll be honest, I dismissed the first 15 years in 1 chapter, because from 1979 to 1994, the European Parliament had very few formal powers. It was only with the introduction of co-decision in 1994 that we started to get any real powers. But I look specifically and in some detail at the years since 1994 to look at what's happened. I also try to pick out what themes liberals in the European Parliament chose to concentrate on, and to what extent we were successful, who did it, and so on and so forth. And I try to throw in there some thoughts about the development of the European Union during the process, and a few anecdotes, such as the occasion on which we sent a roast pig to the governor of the Central Bank of Lithuania. I can tell you the story if you really want to know. Two or three things strike me about the European Union in its development. The development has been often slow, frequently hesitating, but nonetheless inexorable. It has been a development which has seen the Union grow from 6 countries at the beginning, in the 1950s and 60s, to 9 countries in the 1970s, 12 countries in the 1980s, 15 countries in the 1990s. And it's going to sound a big jump when I say 27 countries in this decade, but actually the expansion in terms of the percentage expansion of this decade, going from 15 to 27 countries, has been no greater than the expansion when the European Union took in the United Kingdom, Ireland and Denmark, or indeed other expansions. We took in 2004 Poland, a country of just under 40 million people, and 9 other countries with a total population of just under 40 million people. So in size we took in 2 Polands, if you like. In 2007, Romania and Bulgaria brought between them another 32 million people into the European Union, taking us up to a total of about 500 million people as a whole. But the expansion has been no greater in real terms than in previous decades, and I've no doubt we will go on to expand in the next decade to take in Croatia, Iceland, probably Macedonia, probably Serbia, probably a number of other countries of the Western Balkans, and big question mark, Turkey. Who knows? We can talk about that if you like. And at the same time as the Union has expanded like that, as you know, it has also, or the member states have also chosen to deepen their cooperation, because what started as a coal and steel community and developed as an agriculture community has gone on to add a single market and a single currency, and the outlines of common policies in justice and home affairs, and in foreign and security policy, and now has a policy on energy, a policy to fight climate change, and